Good evening, students. Welcome to Zoology Classroom. In today's class, we are going to discuss about adaptations in sensory receptors. This topic comes in MSc Zoology 4th semester. Paper name is Comparative Animal Physiology 2. So, first of all, let us know what is sensory adaptation. So far, in the previous classes, we have seen about what are sensory receptors and how they will generate receptor potentials and how the receptor potentials are converted into action potentials. And from our schooling, we have been knowing the importance of action potentials. It is due to the action potentials only our brain is able to receive the information of the surroundings, what is happening in the surroundings. So all these details are received by the brain from the action potentials transmitted from various sensory organs. So in this context, sensory reception, sensory reception is very, very important process. The sensory reception receives the stimuli that are present in our surroundings, and this stimuli are converted into action potentials, and through the action potentials our brain will come to know what is happening in our surroundings. So in this context, sensory adaptation is a phenomenon, it is a process, and it is very, very useful process. It usually occurs inside our nervous system. What happens in this sensory adaptation is that when sensory receptors are continuously exposed to same stimuli, say for example, the stimuli is given to the sensory receptors for a long period of time. In such situations, it will be a burden to the sensory receptors to generate continuously the receptor potentials or generator potentials. So in this type of situations, the sensory receptors, they will exhibit a phenomenon called sensory adaptations. So what happens in this sensory adaptation? In this sensory adaptation, the sensory receptors, they will adapt to the continuous stimuli. Otherwise, what we can say, they will neglect the continuous stimuli. So this is called sensory adaptation. So sensory receptors will adapt to the continuous prolonged stimuli. This process is called sensory adaptation. Sensory adaptation is very, very required for our body. Why? Because continuously some stimuli are continuously given to our body. If those receptors are about to receive continuously those stimuli, and the sensory receptors, if they are about to generate continuously the sensory receptor potentials or generator potentials or action potentials, what will happen? Our brain will receive the same impulses, same information continuously. But we have to concentrate on more important stimuli than the regular stimuli. Say, for example, continuously wind will be blowing on our skin. Wind blow is a stimuli. And this wind blow acts as a stimulus on our skin. The receptors which are present in our skin, they will generate receptor potential. In turn, this receptor potential will be converted into action potential. Finally, brain, upon receiving the action potential, will come to know that wind is blowing on our skin. So if these receptors are continuously generating the receptor potentials, what will happen? Continuously, our brain will be receiving information that wind is blowing on our skin, wind is blowing on our skin, wind is blowing on our skin. So the same information will be going around in our brain. But as we are required to concentrate on some other important stimuli, we have to forget some unimportant stimuli. And what are your unimportant stimuli? The stimuli which is continuously given to our body. The stimuli which is continuously exposed to such type of continuous stimuli are unimportant. So some unimportant stimuli have to be neglected. So this neglecting phenomenon is called sensory adaptation. So what happens? Some sensory receptors, they will adapt greater extent than other sensory receptors. So in this way, we can say that some sensory receptors, they adapt very well. Otherwise, we can say they will adapt very quickly. They will adapt very fastly. Whereas some other sensory receptors, they will take a lot of time to adapt. Otherwise, some sensory receptors, they never adapted. So like that also may happen. So in this way, two types of sensory adaptations may be seen in our nervous system, in our sensory receptors. Some sensory receptors adapt fastly or quickly. We call them as fast adapting sensory receptors. Some sensory receptors, they will adapt very lately or slowly. We call them as slow adapting receptors or non-adapting receptors. So, and depending on the stimulus, the receptors, in some cases, they may increase or decrease the ability to respond to the stimuli. So, in some receptors, they may, as they are continuously being exposed to the same stimulus, in the initial phases, they may unable to generate the receptor potential. But as they are being exposed to the same stimulus of the same strength for a long period of time, in such prolonged stimulus, they will increase the receptor potentials. And in many cases, these sensory receptors, they will decrease the receptor potential generation also. So in this way, both things are possible. Receptors adaptations are two types. They may increase the receptor potentials, or they may decrease the receptor potentials. Increasing potential rates is less common than the decreasing receptor potential rates. So the sensory adaptation can happen to all five basic senses like sight, hearing, smell, touch, and taste. So, and another thing is there, sensory habituation. It is also similar to sensory adaptation, but some small differences are there in between sensory adaptation and sensory habituation. So, in sensory habituation also, this is also one type of sensory adaptation. But in this sensory adaptation, sorry, in sensory habituation, only decrease in response to the stimulus will be seen. Whereas in sensory adaptations, in some receptors case, we may see the increase in the response to the stimulus. But here in habituation, only decrease will be seen. And for example, habituation to the smell in people living nearby drainage areas or what we can say slum areas. So when we go to a slum area, we cannot bear the smell of that slum areas. But after living in the same area for some days, later we will habituate to the smell. That means we cannot identify the bad smell at all after living in that slum area for some days. So that is called habituation. So in habituation, it is one of the most simplest form of learning. And some people tune out non-essential stimuli and focus on the things that really require or demand attention. And habituation, it is a process, something happens regularly in our daily life, but we will don't know about it, or we are unaware of this habituation process. And here in this slide, we can see the differences in between adaptation, sensory adaptation and sensory habituation. Three major differences are there in between these two phenomena. So first difference is that sensory adaptation, in this sensory adaptation, it is not accessible to conscious control. So unconsciously, sensory adaptation will occur, but habituation occurs consciously. So it is accessible to our conscious control. So for example, sensory adaptations, we cannot decide how quickly our sensory receptors adapt to a particular smell or a particular change in the light intensity or any other sensory stimulus. But in case of sensory habituation, we can decide that, say, for example, when we are working in a area where continuous noise is there, so we can consciously, we can control, otherwise we consciously, we can neglect the the noises, and we can concentrate on what we want to concentrate on, what things. So in this way, concentrating on some things is possible. So that is called habituation. But in sensory adaptations, our consciousness has no role to play. And the second difference is that sensory adaptation is tied closely to a stimulus intensity, or it is closely related to the stimulus intensity. So it will increase along with this stimulus intensity, or it will decrease with the stimulus intensity decrease. So whereas sensory habituation, it is not related to the stimulus intensity at all. So example for this sensory adaptation in terms of stimulus intensity is that the more intensity of a bright light increases, what happens, the more strongly our senses will adapt to the light. Whereas in sensory habituation, as it is not closely related or tied to the stimulus intensity, our level of habituation will not differ much in our responses to the sound of a loud fan or to the sound of a quiet air conditioner. So loud fan makes a lot of noise and air conditioner makes a less noise. But adaptation or habituating to this loud fan or air conditioner noise, both these things require the same amount of energy or same amount of effort. So no effort is, more effort is required to habituate to the loud fan, or less energy is not required to habituate to the low noise making air conditioner. So in this way, sensory habituation is not closely related to the intensity of the stimulus. And third difference in between sensory adaptation and habituation is that in sensory adaptation, this sensory adaptation is unrelated to the number, length, and recency of prior exposures of the stimulus, whereas habituation is closely related to the number of incidences, length of the duration of the stimulus, and recency of the prior exposure. So this is the these are the three differences in between these sensory adaptation and habituation. So habituation is also one type of adaptation, but some differences are there. We have seen those differences in this slide. Now coming to the sensory adaptation, the types of sensory adaptation. So depending on how strongly or how fastly the sensory receptors adapt to the stimuli, they are of two types. One is phasic receptors, second one is tonic receptors. Phasic receptors, they quickly adapt to the continuous stimuli, whereas tonic receptors, they slowly adapt, or in some cases they do not adapt at all. So most of the exterior receptors, that means receptors which are present on our exterior surfaces like our skin, our eyes, ears, and all basic sensory receptors, 5 basic sensory receptors, these are called as exterosensory receptors. So these exterosensory receptors are phasic receptors. That means they fastly adapt to the responses. So we can, if we think deeply, we can understand that these exterior receptors are receiving the stimuli coming from our external environment. So internal receptors, they do not adapt fastly or quickly, whereas exterior receptors only adapt quickly or fastly. Why? Because concentrating on more important stimuli or external stimuli is important than receiving the same external stimuli. So that's why exterior receptors, they quickly adapt to the unimportant or continuously given exterior stimuli. So, and coming to slow adapting receptors, so these are called tonic receptors, and these tonic receptors, they will continue to send these impulses in the form of action potentials, or in they will generate the impulses in the form of sensory receptors, and they will continuously send these signals to the brain. So brain will be receiving the stimulus continuously, but the intensity may be decreased to some extent, but they will continuously, they will be generating the receptor potentials and will be converting them into action potentials. So, and brain continuously will be receiving the stimuli, so that brain continuously or constantly appraises the status of the body. That means brain will be knowing the status of the body, and the intensity of the stimuli will be receiving by the brain due to these tonic receptors. And examples for these tonic receptors are Golgi tendon apparatus, in the macula, in the vestibular apparatus. This is present in the ears. And baroreceptors and chemoreceptors, these are examples for tonic receptors which adapt slowly or not at all. And rapid adapting receptors, these are called phasic receptors, and they will quickly adapt to the continuous or prolonged stimuli. And examples for these things are Pacinian corpuscles. And these in these organs, what happens? Receptor potentials will be stopped if they are exposed to the stimuli for a long period of time. So here in this slide, we can see the differences between tonic and phasic receptors. So in this this black one is stimulus. So this is the duration of the stimulus and intensity of the stimulus. And usually, if no adaptation occurs, if there is no adaptation at all, action potentials will be in accordance with the duration and intensity of the stimulus. So action potentials also will be continuously generated, and they will be transmitted towards brain. So now let us see the differences among these tonic receptors and phasic receptors. So this green color line is the generator potential. Okay. So when no adaptation is occurring, this generator potential also will be in close relation, or it will be directly proportional to the stimulus strength. And action potentials also will be directly proportional to the generator potential and stimulus strength. So coming to the tonic receptors, they will adapt slowly. So here in this thing, this green line is depicting or explaining about the generator potential intensity. So here we can see in the initial, generator potential intensity is high. As the time passes, what is happening? Intensity of the generator potential is slowly decreasing. It is slowly decreasing in tonic receptors or slow adapting receptors. Coming to phasic receptors are rapid adapting receptors. So here in this thing also, generator potential is high in the initial phase. But what is happening, as it is a phasic receptor, as it is a rapidly adapting receptor, fastly adapting receptor, immediately after some time, what is happening? The generator potential intensity is drastically changed a lot. Okay, when no adaptation is occurring, generator potential is also, it is directly proportional to the stimulus strength. So in this way, generator potential, they are fastly decreasing in phasic receptors. They are slowly decreasing in tonic receptors. In non-adapting receptors, they are not decreasing at all. They are in direct proportion with the stimulus strength. Coming to the action potentials, these action potentials, they are directly linked to the generator potential intensity. So here we can see, as generator potential is fastly decreased, the intensity of generator potential is fastly decreased in phasic receptors. The number of action potentials generated also, they are very less in number. So whereas action potentials generated in case of tonic receptors, they are more when compared to the phasic receptors, but they are less when compared to non-adapting receptors. In non-adapting receptors, action potentials are continuously generated without any gap, and this intensity of these action potentials or frequency of action potentials is in direct proportion with the stimulus strength. So in this way, these action potentials and generator potentials, both these things are directly linked to each other, but the adaptation is making a difference in generator potential intensity or generator potential frequency when compared to the stimulus frequency or stimulus intensity. So adaptation of different types of receptors, mechanoreceptors adapt almost completely. So the mechanoreceptors, they fastly adapt. We can say they are fastly adapting receptors. And non-mechanoreceptors, chemoreceptors, pain receptors, these two types of receptors never adapt completely, or we can say they are slowly adapting receptors. And coming to the different types of receptors, how they will adapt to these continuously given or prolonged stimuli. So in chemoreceptors, we have two types of exterior receptors. One is gustatory receptors, and second one is olfactory receptors. So let us see about the gustatory receptors. So these gustatory receptors, they are present on our tongue in the oral cavity, and the receptors are called taste buds. So these taste buds are present on our tongue. Taste buds are present on our tongue and throughout the tongue, and they are also present in the inner lining of total oral cavity. So when we see the single taste bud structure, so this taste bud is hidden inside these tongue muscles, and they are having many cells, and all these cells are nothing but gustatory receptor cells. And these gustatory receptor cells, they will be having some sensory hair. We call them as a gustatory pore. So this is a bulb-like structure. In this bulb-like structure, many sensory or many gustatory receptor cells are there, and it is a cup-like structure. In the middle of the cup, a hollow will be there, and into this hollow, what happens? Saliva will enter into this hollow of this taste bud. And in this saliva, which enters into this taste bud, the saliva will be having the chemicals of food items we put inside our mouth cavity. So taste pore will be there. Through this taste pore, saliva will enter into this cup, and through the saliva, chemicals which are responsible for the taste of the food also will enter into the taste bud. And in response to these chemicals which are present in the saliva, these sensory receptors or these gustatory receptors, they will generate receptor potential. And this receptor potential, as all these gustatory receptors are having nerve fibers and they are connected to the sensory neurons. So in the gustatory receptor potential will be generated. When this receptor potential is conveyed to the sensory neurons, it will be converted into action potentials. So this is the mechanism how we receive about the taste information. And coming to this olfactory receptors, these olfactory receptors are present on the uh, upper portion of this part, our nasal cavity. And all these things are having some olfactory receptors, and these olfactory receptors, they will be having nerve endings. All these nerve endings will be connected to the olfactory nerve, and this olfactory nerve, it is connected to the olfactory part of the brain. So when the air enters into this our nasal cavity, the air, it will bring the chemicals which are responsible for the smell of the items. So these smell particles, these chemicals, they will come in contact with these sensory receptors. All the sensory receptors, again, they're also having sensory hair. So when these taste chemicals, smell chemicals, olfactory chemicals come in contact with the sensory hair, sensory receptor potential or generator potential will be generated in these sensory receptors or olfactory receptors. This receptor potential will be converted into action potential in the olfactory nerve. So this is the process how olfactory receptors will work. So these are the two types of chemoreceptors. And coming to another one, thermoreceptors. Two types of thermoreceptors are there: cross end bulb and Ruffini's end bulb. So these cross end bulbs and Ruffini's end bulbs are also a special type of receptors. They are having connections with the nerves, and these nerves, they will finally be send information to the brain. And third one, mechanoreceptors. Mechanoreceptors, examples for mechanoreceptors are Pacinian corpuscles. These Pacinian corpuscles are present all over our skin. So, and this Pacinian corpuscle, this is also a special type of receptor. So here, this Pacinian corpuscle is having many lamellae in the receptor area. So many lamellae, many layers are there. So like we can see the many layers in an onion. So many layers are there. So in between these layers, some fluid will be there, like our cytoplasm is present in all other cells. So some fluid will be there. So this fluid is equally distributed in between these layers of this lamellae. So when some item is present on our skin, the pressure of the item, the weight of the item makes these lamellae compress with each other. So the compression of these layers generates the receptor potential within this area. So in this receptor potential, when it enters into this neuron area, it will be converted into action potentials. So in this way, pressure receiving or receiving the pressure stimuli is due to this compression of lamellae which are present in the Pacinian corpuscle. So this is a third type of receptor. Next, another one is these are called electroreceptors. This is present in our syllabus. But more information is not present in this about these electroreceptors. So how they work, we have the information, we have the knowledge of this, how this work, but how they are adapting is not available. So electroreceptors are present in some aquatic animals. These aquatic animals will have a special type of receptors throughout their oral area or facial area. So through these areas, they will receive electrical impulses coming from this water. So through these electrical impulses, they will know the information of the prey organisms or predatory organisms. So we will not go into deep about these electroreceptors, but let us see about how these first three mechanoreceptors, thermoreceptors, and chemoreceptors, how they will adapt. So coming to the mechanism of sensory receptor adaptation. So the adaptation occurs due to the readjustments in the structure of the sensory receptors. As we have already said, Pacinian corpuscle, what happening in this Pacinian corpuscle? Pacinian corpuscle, the lamellae are away from each other. But when some item is present on our skin, the weight of the item makes these lamellae come close together. So in this ways, what is happening? Structural readjustment. So readjustments are taking in the structure of the sensory receptors. So this distortion force, okay, the distortion force of these pressure stimuli is responsible for the receptor potential. So when the when the receptor is continuously exposed to the stimulus, then what happens? The fluid the inactivation of the sodium channels takes place. So due to the inactivation of sodium channels, what happens? The generation of receptor potential will cease. So to continuously generate the receptor potential, continuously sodium channels need to be activated. So they have to be in activated phase continuously to generate receptor potential. But due to this adaptation, what is happening? After some time, sodium channels become inactivated. When sodium channels become inactivated, the inward outward flow of sodium and potassium ions also will be prevented. Due to the prevention in the sodium and potassium ions currents, what is happening? Receptor potential will stop generating, or it will decrease to a greater extent. So in this way, receptor adaptations happen due to the readjustments in the structure of the receptor. So the same thing happens in these chemoreceptors and thermoreceptors are also, but the stimulus is different in case of these thermoreceptors and chemoreceptors. So in Pacinian corpuscles, as we have seen, they are having a viscoelastic structure. The Pacinian corpuscle is having a viscoelastic nature. So the distortion force transmitted by the viscous component or liquid component of the Pacini and corpuscle. So the movements in these liquid part, they will generate the generator potential or receptor potential. When prolonged stimulus is given, what will happen? The impulses after some time, they will cause in the redistribution of the this liquid portion in the cell. So the redistribution reduces the generator potential. So coming to chemo and thermoreceptors, in chemoreceptors and thermoreceptors, the receptor proteins, okay, the proteins which are present on these receptors are very, very important. They play an important role in sensory adaptation in these organisms, in these, in these receptors. So what will happen? These receptors, they are having some receptor proteins on their membranes. And with these receptor proteins, the stimulus molecule, in case of thermoreceptors, it is coolness or hotness of the object. In case of chemoreceptors, it is the taste chemical or it is the smell chemical. So these stimulus chemicals, they will come and bind with these receptor proteins. Thus, they will make a complex. So receptor protein and stimulant complex. So the complex generation, the complex formation triggers many biological biochemical reactions in the sensory receptor. So, and these biochemical reactions, they will open the sodium and calcium channels. So, inward and outward flow of sodium channels, sodium ions, potassium ions, calcium ions. This generates receptor potential in these thermoreceptors and chemoreceptors. So, when continuously the stimulus is there, what will happen? So, progressive inactivation of these sodium and calcium channels causes the sensory adaptation. So whatever receptor you take, if the receptor is going, this adaptation phenomena, ultimately the sodium channels, calcium channels, potassium channels have to be inactivated. Only when they are inactivated, then only the sensory adaptation will occur. So how this inactivation of sodium, calcium channels occur? It will be different from one type of receptor to another type of receptor. So this is how this what chemo and thermoreceptors and Pacini and corpuscles are mechanoreceptors, they will adapt. So with this, this topic is over. If you have any doubts, let us discuss now.